Hello, and welcome to today's Skill Up session from ITIL and PeopleCert, powered by Techstrong. I'm your host, Matt Barron. I am a senior product marketing specialist at Invigate, and today we are talking about how service management modernizes the IT help desk experience. My guest today is Adriaan von der Rijken, Senior Principal Success Architect at ServiceNow. Welcome, Adriaan.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, and yes, good point. Congratulations to Spain on the FIFA World Cup. Huge undertaking. Way to go. Before we get started, I wanted to let the audience know that this program is live and being recorded, so you can view it again or on demand. Also, there are chat and QA boxes on the right over there on the side of your screen to communicate with us and with everyone else in chat. And there's questions for speakers. So let's get your questions answered. Throw your questions out there in chat. Some people pointing out, let us know where you're coming in from today, because we like to know who's here and what's going on. And we want to really hit the questions that are in your mind, because this is for you. This isn't for us. We could take this conversation a lot of different ways. I always try to kind of say, hey, this is free consulting. So if you want our perspectives, come get them. I'm sorry, I'm giving away your time, Adriaan.
No. You're right. I mean, we have some. I have some answers. I don't have all the answers, but definitely want to hit the important questions from our audience. I mean, we can talk about this forever, but not necessarily answer any question. So, but yes. It's a wonderful topic that we have today.
It is near and dear to my heart and to a lot of people's hearts. I don't think there's a single person that works at an organization that doesn't have to interface with a service desk or a help desk of some kind, whether it be IT or HR or finance or facilities. At some point, you're going to need service. If you're an independent person, you're the only employee at the company. Even then, you're service providers. You're calling into Dell support. The service experience touches us all. So let's talk about that. Let's get to the meat of it right away.
Let's do
it. What is a modern service desk experience? What do you think when you think modern service desk experience? What comes to your mind, Adriaan?
Wow, that's opening with that question. A modern service desk. This is also one of those questions. We can go 1,000 ways, but the modern service desk is to me is one that is supported by automation as much as we possibly can, right? And as much as that makes sense. I was thinking about it this morning a little bit, going back to all the service desks and help desks that I've seen. But it makes a huge difference whether you're an organization that has 100 people or you have an organization where there's hundreds and thousands of users that you serve, right? So there's the balance that you need to find between the investment that you make in your help desk and service desk versus, again, in a small organization. So to me, it's an interesting question that you ask it that way, right? So what is a modern service desk? To me, I think I often have to go back even to what is a service desk, right? What do we want from a service desk? What is intent? Before we even ask the question, like, what is a modern service desk? But to go back again, nowadays, we don't even have to start about artificial intelligence, generative AI, but even using things like a good knowledge management base, your virtual agent, right? So have self-service ready for customers. I think that's modern, right? If I go to our approach is always the way I interact with my social media in my in my personal life is an interaction I like to see with the business, right? With my organization, right? And also with help desk. Like, make it simple, make it quick, make it 1 click, 2 clicks. And if you have to talk to somebody, I'll ask you, Matt, if you talk to somebody, what do you expect? I mean, what do you think is a modern service desk?
I like the question you threw back right away. What is a service desk? What is a help desk? And to answer 842, I think of help desk and service desk as synonymous. very similar things. Some people attribute service desk to being a more mature organization and a help desk being less mature, but I think it's all just words. I think the service is really what we're really interested in. And I like your question, what is a service desk? Because I think the modern service desk experience or the modern help desk experience questions that constantly. Do we want this to be here? Do we actually want a service desk? Is something that no one actually has the luxury of asking, but is something that I think needs to be asked. And you see this from companies like Nextthink and Brighthorse and people talking in experience management. IT ships services, people get equipment and software and services. Those things break. We need a way to deal with those things breaking. Now, I want to take a step back to those things breaking. If we can remove all those things from breaking, right, isn't the best experience to not need service at all? Just everything works. It works all the time. You know, you think of something as, it has to be simple, right? Think of something as simple as a pencil. It's never gonna, it breaks, you sharpen it. Done. Self-service, you fixed it yourself. I could tell I'm already making you kind of nervous with that description.
No. It's just funny, right? So, I mean, 20 years ago, I was thinking about that too, right? We had these when we were just working in ITIL. It's where you say, if we don't have things break, right, then we need a service desk, right? But that is, and this is a difficult question for companies, right? Because what is the way that we don't have things break, right? So you say we have equipment, we have hardware, we have software, we have all kinds of stuff. You make it break by quality, or break less, because everything breaks eventually, but you break less if you invest in quality infrastructure, in quality software development, right? But that is an investment because that is expensive, right? So organizations have to decide on the balance between investment in quality hardware and software versus investing in when it breaks, it needs to be fixed, right? That is a trade-off, right? So the more but that goes back then, in my mind, also completely, I mean, we're taking 14 steps back, but it is like your strategic positioning of the organization, right? The comparison, I mean, this is my third appearance now. I like analogies, right? So I compare it with the restaurant business, right? A fast food restaurant is completely set up differently when it comes to service than a 1-star, 2-star, Michelin star restaurant, right? They have a different view on what service means. They're addressing also a different audience. So an organization, rather than blindly saying, oh, I need a service desk and this is what they're going to do, what kind of service desk do you expect? Do you just want a fast service or do you want quality service, right? And that is the balance and the trade-off that you need to make, right? And that goes back then also to not only investment in hardware, software to have things not break, but if things break, is the investment of people, right? So if you look at service management, there's one thing, it's called workforce and talent management, I believe. But I think that is an important process to apply to a service desk, right? I need to have the right workforce at the right time with the right skills to support the organization in the way that I intend it to be. Right? So I think that's again, besides all the automation that we can do from a virtual agent and knowledge management systems that can support and self-service that can help. But I think those are all the puzzle pieces that we need to start fitting together.
Yeah. Your response reminds me, it's not always about the technology, right? It's the diversity of thought. It's the human element. How do we actually connect with people? How do we serve people's needs? Because you can ship even the best pencil in the world, someone is still not going to be able to figure it out. They'll write, they'll have no idea how to get rid of that writing and not even connect the dots to the eraser on the end. And we need to enable that diversity. That's what the service desk is for, so that you can take the human element, which is going to be completely random all over the board, and apply it to services and connect those two together. And that's why good agents are such great people, because they can actually take those complex services and those complex humans and connect connect the dots between them, translate to each other.
Yeah.
Participant 115's got a great comment here. Service desk and help desk are a matter of opinion. It varies from every generation. Some think that the service desk and help desk is talking to a person, and some think that it's where you can call a number and press buttons and go online.
It's true.
But that's basically the general concept. That's what the help desk is, right?
No, but it's true, right? I mean, again, we can, if you go to ITIL terms, there's a clear definition of what a help desk and service desk is. But the point to what 115 is trying to say is very well taken, right? Again, I think it depends on the circumstances, the context. If you're a help desk or a service desk for a manufacturing environment, right? That is it's the audience that you're trying to serve, right? Those people don't really necessarily, and I say that respectfully, by the way, don't get me wrong, but those people are not necessarily waiting for the touchy-feely conversation, right? They're working, it needs to get done, quick, let's fix this, right? If you're going in healthcare, doctors don't even want to spend any time, right? So they just, if at all, they have assistants that interact through systems. They don't want to talk to people because they're busy with their patients. If you're in an HR environment, hey, we'd like the touchy-feely part, right? So we'll have a conversation. And how's your day going? And I think that is the part, again, besides the automation thing, is where we're not that good at to identify what is the audience that we're trying to serve, right? How do we do this, right? So there are all different ways of doing it right, but you have to find the right way with the right audience and the right users and customers that you're trying to serve.
And that's the answer. That's what a modern help desk experience is that adaptation to the people that you need. You made the point that we've all stereotyped doctors and lawyers. And we've said, hey, they don't even want to call the service desk. They're going to have their nurse. They're going to have their administrative assistant call in, or someone else is going to create the ticket for them. So build your help desk experiences knowing that that's the way that the people want to interact. They don't want to interact is one of them. That's one of your personas, right? And that's where experience management is really starting to hit this industry hard when it comes to modern service desk experiences. Understanding the people, doing the research, and then understanding, okay, the people in the warehouse, they're busy, they're mobile, they're on their feet all day long. They just have a mobile app. They don't have a computer in front of them. Build a service desk experience for that. The doctors, they're busy. They don't want to put in tickets. Make sure that when their nurses are putting in tickets, they can say this is for Dr. So-and-so. The same goes across the board in all of our industries and all of our people. So I believe that that's what a modern service desk experience is tuned to the people you serve.
No, I'm right. And I think you're partially answering participant 374, right? And when it then comes to automation, I think with generative AI or predictive intelligence, right? Those interactions just need to be easy, right? So when somebody starts logging in and says, I have a problem with my laptop, if you have a great system, a modern help desk, service desk, it already starts popping up. Oh, so is this your laptop? And you have this monitor potentially with it, and this is the software you're running, right? So it already knows all these things that are happening. So it can drill you down for people who are not very familiar with the environment that they're working with. It can, in a user language, already start drilling down, okay, what is the challenge, right? What is the issue? And also come with suggestions, right? So, hey, if you're ordering this, if you're in need of that, are you also in need of this? Right? So, and that is even already without any interaction with people, right? And again, for some organizations that works, right? Going back to 374, I think it's very important to make it contextual, right? And to put it in the environment that works for you. If you have an organization with a lot of young people, right, which I am not part of anymore, right? They are used to just communicate through, again, social media interaction through text and SMS, and they're okay with not having necessarily a lot of interaction. When you're my age, I still like to talk to somebody, right? I still like to say, hey, how you doing, right? Because I feel I have to explain what's wrong with my computer, although I'm sure they know that without me saying a word. Right, but I think that's the contextual part. So modern, like you said, the modern service desk, part of that is really being in tune with the public you're serving, the audience, the users, the customers that you're serving. I think that is a very important part to link that up and understand that.
Yes. You also had in your initial response the fact that different organizations are going to have different needs. There's people in 100-person, 200, 300 people in an organization, all the way up to hundreds and thousands of people. And those experiences are going to massively differ because of the scale problem. You can understand people and you can segment people and build personas. But the reality hits at some point that to scale to 100,000 employees, 250,000 employees, 500,000 employees, you're going to have a completely different experience.
Yeah. And then I know you're asking a question to the audience, so we're waiting for that response, right? But the flip side of that is when we talk about, I mean, we can talk about the diversity of audience that we have, right? But I also go back then, once we kind of know that, there are, like when I go to a hotel, right? I mean, they don't know everybody who walks in, right? They didn't do really a study of me and you and everybody. But there are basic things that I think a help desk or a service desk needs to be, right? So the first thing when you walk into a hotel, a good front desk is they look at you, acknowledge you, and smile, right? And I think that's important to also think about those key elements that we all need, right? I know modernization, automation is key, but I think we need to, and not just with the interaction from a human being perspective, but even when you interact with a computer, with a virtual agent, there are things that people pick up on that we just expect implicitly, right? There's just have an acknowledgement, have an understanding, have whatever that may be. And that needs to be baked in in my mind, from a user experience and a customer experience, right? Especially nowadays, it's so easy. I won't say that it's easy to switch companies, but when you're a consumer, it's easy to switch very quickly from one product to another. Just because my service, I mean, I've done that before. I hate to say it, but just because I didn't get a good service, I mean, like, okay, then you know what? I can buy this product at 3, 4, 5 different places, right? So I'll switch just because you didn't think about the experience that comes with the service desk. But I don't know how do you feel about that, Matt?
I just switched from one wireless carrier to the other, and I will say that they made it easy to switch. You know, that switching cost is very, very simple. And I think, you know, it's almost unfair to compare enterprise to consumer technologies. It feels unfair anyway. But what I think is that ageism aside, people want specific things and you need to give them that option, because if you don't, they will feel conflicted just with the fact that they're being forced to do something that they don't want to. And I'll give you the example, that chatbot that you brought up. A lot of people think modern, they think AI, they think chatbot, but we've all been burned by chatbots in the past. And thankfully, I've had the honor of being on some research projects where we've asked about chatbots and tried to get people to we wanted them to be okay with a chatbot, right? So we go into this company and we start performing research. Okay, we launch a chatbot. Here's its name. Here's its logo. They're like, don't care about either of those things. But here are some things that it could help you with. Of these 10 things it could help you with, which one would be the most important? And 80% of respondents said, number one, connect me with a human. That was always what they wanted the chatbot to do. And so before you go and start investing in technology, I think it's key, or in methods, or in frameworks, or in any real big change that you're performing at an organization, you need to go to the people. You need to understand them, think about what they want, do the research, because they are diverse. And you can have empathy maps, and you can have past research that you've got that you can leverage to help put yourself in their shoes. But if people don't want something new, don't spend a bunch of time building it. Don't spend a bunch of money putting it in place, because they may not even want it. You could, send flowers to their parents, and that would be better spent money. Okay, so let's assume that everyone here already knows what a modern help desk experience is, what a modern service desk experience is, and they're working towards it every day through continual service improvement. Let's talk about this linkage, because I think that's what people are really here for, is to understand not just what the modern help desk experience is, but how does service management serve the needs of that modern experience? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I guess you're asking me.
And the audience too. Put it in chat. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of how service management, the practices, the operations, what we do on a regular basis can actually serve that modern service desk experience? And Adrian, I'll let you, while people are typing, give us your response.
Yeah, another question that can take us a couple of directions. I will take the direction of the ITIL practices, right? The management practices. I think there's a couple of things, and I hate to say the obvious ones, but you need to have some solid processes in place, right? You need a good, organized, agile incident management process, request fulfillment process. The knowledge base is extremely important, right? And that goes back a little bit to your strategy. Are we going to have a whole bunch of agents that are generalist, or are we setting up agents that have a specific depth with a certain topic, right? And that's maybe, like you said before, maybe that's a little bit of the difference between a help desk and a service desk, right? People with a little bit more insight, a little bit more in-depth, more proactive, knowing what is coming, understanding. So knowledge management, the one that I mentioned before, the workforce and talent management, I think is a very under, how you say that, and it's a practice that a lot of organizations don't look at, right? We just assume that we hire somebody, that they know how to work on the service desk, but that's not how that works, right? It's just not how that matches up. So I think I think we covered a bunch of that. Now there's supporting parts to that, right? So like you said before, how can we make sure that things don't break, right? Now, let's start with how can we make things better? So I think continual improvement is an important thing. But when we take service management as a whole and not just focus on IT service management or ITIL, I think the whole human aspect of it, right? So people skills, right? Again, in balance with what we're trying to do, but align that with each other. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, and obviously the audience.
Yeah, I love what you brought up. Continual service improvement, having people that are willing to explore and try and break things and kind of understand what's coming. What do people expect next? 471 noted, when you're having that chatbot experience and you type a bunch of stuff to the chatbot, the agent isn't always given that information. And we used to have that on IVR systems or integrated voice response systems, where you'd call into a system and authenticate. You'd put in your social security number, your phone number, or whatever, and then you'd pick up with a person and they would have to ask you that exact same question. Well, thankfully, a lot of that stuff is going away. The IVRs are finally starting to pass that stuff to agents, because a lot of the technology vendors are starting to lead the way with experience management. They're starting to realize, okay, the agent, we have to think beyond customer experience and also towards agent experience. So consider them both, because that continuity is what you're really trying to not break. If you break that continuity, it creates that uncanny valley that people are like, wait a second, that bot that's not a real person. It says it's Sandy, but Sandy didn't tell Alice what my social security number was. So when I think service management and how it helps modernize the service desk experience, exactly what you said, Adrian, continual service improvement. You need to be laser focused on that. And through that, you're conducting some of that research. You're prototyping some new ideas. You're saying, instead of just forcing a laptop on all of your users, everyone's going to use this X200. You have to use this. Instead, you're listening and you're saying, here are 10 laptops you can choose from, and you take a sample set, 10% of your employees, and throw them in a conference room, and they get to play around. They get to try out these laptops and see what they're like, and do we actually like them? And by doing that, your services improve. There's no better way to put that than to say, by just giving customers a voice, by giving employees and colleagues a voice into what laptops you're picking, what services you're picking, what solutions you're picking, just by giving them that choice, you're doing continual improvement. You're doing the research and listening and connecting.
Yeah, no, you're right. And then I see a couple of things also around the agent experience, but the simple question is also around service, right? What do I as a consumer, right? What do I define as a good service, and things like that? And I think a lot of organizations still focus too much on that technology bit, on the software bit, on the functional element of things, right? Rather than the human interaction of things. I miss that in a lot of organizations. And truly, I mean, in the 30 years that I've been doing this now, I just compare it with my own life, right? How do I want to be treated when I walk into a restaurant, into a hotel, into any service organization? How do I want to be treated, right? As a user, as a customer. And you need to be fair, right? If I go into an organization or into a place where they sell coffee for 50 cents versus I go to a place where they sell coffee for $4.25, right? I need to adjust my expectations, right? I cannot expect the same service, right? So and my point with that is that if the coffee doesn't taste too good, you know what, the 50 cents one, I will probably chuck out. I don't go back and complain or expect that person to be although it sometimes happens, right? I'm not saying that they shouldn't be very nice to you, but if you provide a more expensive service, you also expect a different approach when it comes to break fix or helping you fulfill the service and the experience that comes with that, right? And I think so the experience of, I think that's where it lacks sometimes, right? Organizations don't fully understand what the experience is of the service, right? How do I experience from start to finish, right? They often only pick up at a certain point. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is, how do you measure things like this, right? How do you measure a good help desk or a good service desk? And in my mind, too often we focus on things that really, from my perspective as a consumer, are irrelevant, right? I don't care how many tickets you have in the queue, right? I don't care what the average time is. There's times where I'm okay with being on the phone for an hour, right? When we have a complex issue or it's very important to me and it has to be done today, I'm okay to just spend the time and get it done. Where something that I think is as very simple and doesn't need a lot of interaction, I think it needs to be done within a minute, right? And if I'm done already in the queue for 30 minutes, sometimes that's okay. If you, for example, tell me, right, hey, there's 412 people in front of you, we get to you in 32 minutes. And again, I hope we don't all have to call help desk very often, but it is the consistency that matters, right? It is the fact that when they say 32 minutes and it's within a reasonable range, that it's 31 minutes, 33 minutes, hey, I'm great, right? And if they do that repetitively, then I know, for example, that when they tell me 45 minutes, that I can put the phone down, walk away, do a bunch of other stuff, and come back after 40 minutes, and I'm still there, right? So consistency of service is also part of that, right? We're not always expecting as consumers it to be within a snap of a finger, but I want it to be consistent. I want it to be the way I expect it to be, right? My perception, my expectations. So that's a little bit, and then about the measurement, right? I think one important thing, I always, and I apologize for those who are the true gurus and ingrained with help desk, right? But one of the things is always the first call resolution. I personally hate that metric, right? Because it does nothing for me as a consumer, right? It just talks about, because what I see in a lot of organizations is we have metrics that drive the wrong behavior, right? I always feel if you set as an organization, you set your goals of what behavior, what service do I want to give to the end consumer, and your metrics should be aligned with the behavior that comes with that. right? First call resolution. And again, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that will tell me that I'm wrong, but first call resolution drives the wrong behavior. Just I'm trying to close the call as quickly as I can without throwing it over to somebody who maybe has a better answer for me, right? Or helps me. Another part to me and is how do you call it? Customer effort score. Right now, that's a metric that I'm pretty okay with. That's good because that is from my perspective. How much effort do I need to put in to get the service that I'm looking for, that I want? Right, that is important to me. Right. The other one is they call the customer. That's an old one, customer satisfaction. Right. Again, the question is, how do you define customer satisfaction? Right, that is then important too. Right? I never like it when there's a survey, right? Especially when there's like 10 choices that I have. Rank me from 1 to 10. I don't know, my 8 could be your 6, Matt, right? So it's very subjective. Where the other thing, because every 8 out of 10, when I call a help desk or service desk, I hear that somebody's recording the message, right? They tell you that. They have to tell you that. Then I think, well, you can listen to the recording, right? And you can hear the tone of my voice, right? Because I know when Matt is happy, I hear that in your tone, or I can hear when you're angry, right? So why do you have to ask me really all these questions? Like, do you really feel good, right? Do I think we're great? No, listen to me, right? I think that is an important factor, right? What is my attitude? What is my behavior towards your service? And that should drive, I think, in a lot of cases, that should drive the improvement of your help desk. But anyway, I'll pause that because I know I've taken a lot of time. Matt, what do you think?
You sprang so many things into my brain with that response. I was teaching my daughter to park yesterday. She's 15, so she's learning to drive, and I'm teaching her to park. And she says, "Dad, why are you yelling?" And I instantly turned on my yelling voice, and she knew that I was not yelling before. But yeah, you're right. We have all this data around whether people are satisfied with service or not. And sometimes people will even respond to the ticket and say, "This was not resolved to my satisfaction." Can you imagine getting a survey about whether you're satisfied about that or not after typing that response? Totally frustrating. The worst situation you can be put in. So always leverage the information you already have. That is key, number one, for improving the service desk experience. And NPS, you said the 1 to 10 thing. I disparage NPS up and down. It is such garbage. I love the idea. I wish it worked. But you're right. It's totally subjective. And in the NPS scoring, everything, I think it's between 5 and 8. I think it's right that those are completely counted out. I forget the calculation.
Yeah, 9 and 10 counts.
Yeah, only 9 and 10 counts. But what if that person is marking it an 8 and you just had to let them know, and what if you improve someone, like one day they score you a 1 and then the next day they score you a 7, and that 7 doesn't count. Improving that experience 6 points doesn't actually improve your NPS at all. So NPS is a tough one. I really do not like it. I also think you should always be collecting just open feedback. Like, here's a text field, throw 1,000 characters in here, whatever you want, because that way you're going to get the reality of the matter. But what I do want to focus on is what you started off your response with, and that is the heart of service management. Because the amount of complexity that goes into, we're all chasing the fires all day long. We're either working on a project, so we're focused on something specific, like, hey, we're rolling out our new ERP system, or we're doing some upgrade, or maybe there's a process project I'm working on. But we're all running around, our hair's on fire, everything's on fire, this is fine, everything's on fire, this is fine. We never really, it feels like a luxury to even talk about this subject, to even just say, how does service management modernize the service desk? And the effort and work that goes into providing a stable foundation for service is not to be undercut. It's something that, it's an art form. It is why ITIL exists. It's why any framework, IT operations framework exists, because it's so complex just to deliver services, to build, design, and transition them to be live, that basically underpins everything that the service desk does.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's the point of this webinar, right?
Well, yes. And when you reference, right, service management, I always have to tell, every piece of service management provides a part to the solution of the puzzle, right? There's not really anything that within service management that doesn't contribute to make things better, right? There's the things that are directly impacting the help desk. But again, as we said in the beginning, if you have a great infrastructure, if your software is great, if your instructions are fantastic, right? If you're really focused on the user experience and the ease of use, you will get less calls, right? So it's all of, and all of these, some of these management practices that are out there have nothing to do directly with the help desk, but has a domino effect to the help desk. So in my mind, every process has its place in making it a good experience, a modern help desk or service desk for an organization. You just have to decide as an organization, what is that path to the best situation, right? The end goal that I have in mind, right? And it's okay for some to go the left side around the roundabout, the traffic circle, and some will go right around the traffic circle, right? But the end goal needs to be in mind, right? So how do we get there, and what does the end goal look like? And what are the pieces then that I'm going to put in place? You cannot boil the ocean, right? You have to eat that elephant one bite at a time. And like I think what was it, participant 81, right? The group of metrics. I always say there is an intuitiveness into all of this, right? I think when you provide a service to an organization, it has to be genuine. There has to be empathy, right? It doesn't always have to be measured and through a technical metric, right? So I think that's important to understand that as well, right? And she's my help desk. She always likes to check. but that's the part of that as well, right? I think again, we can talk about metrics the whole time. I think you need to really look internally into your organization, your service desk organization. What am I trying to achieve? What is my end goal? What is critical to achieving that end goal? So what are my critical success factors? And based on those critical success factors, I create my key performance indicators, right? And it's really, how do I adjust the dials? What dials do I have that I can adjust to bring that improvement or that experience to a higher level? That is important. There's really, in my mind, there's never just one thing that we need to do or that we need to look at. Yeah. The flip side is, don't look at 40 of them, right? Take 5 or 6 elements that are important, and that you need to focus on.
Yeah. You and 81 answered it perfectly. That's exactly what's needed. It can be the metrics. It totally can, and they can show you. They can point out the places where you're really hurting. If everyone is NPS rating 1, I'm sorry, but you got a lot of work to do. And that's kind of the point of these metrics and KPIs and research and surveys and understanding what's bothering people is really just, they're meant to be release valves. Like, hey, this isn't working, and here's why this isn't working. And it has to be a complete picture. So your executives, your leaders, the director of IT can go and talk to directors from other departments and do some of that. They call it the Gemba walk. When you walk around and you talk to people and you say, how is this working? How are we serving your needs? Are we not serving your needs? How can we serve your needs better? And that will tell you infinitely more than a number on a page, infinitely more than a metric or a KPI. So that's usually where I recommend people start. And then, Adrian, let's talk about automation a little bit, because you brought it up pretty early in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel, I was answering a question about this on Reddit this morning. And so this is why I'm curious about this, is because I need this question to answer this person on Reddit. No, I'm kidding. But service management, we never really talk about automation. Like people are always looking for places to automate or to remove toil, remove effort. Where do you suggest people go to look for that sort of thing? I feel like that's one of the ways that service management really modernizes the IT service desk, right? Is through automation.
Yeah, man, what a question. I mean, if you're talking about things like virtual agent, right? Is that the automation kind of what you're talking about? Because that's, to me, automation is how can we make things easier? How can we get to the result faster? How can we get to the result better, right? With an investment that is less or equal of a human interaction, but less prone to mistakes, right? So that is one thing. Again, I'm absolutely not advocating to take the human piece out of the equation, right? I just think there's organizations that lean itself to more automation than other organizations, right? And that's a balance that organizations have to seek for themselves. But going back to the first time when I was confronted in an airport that I had to do self-check-in, I was angry, right? What are you thinking, right? So they were automating the check-in, right? I'm going, what are you thinking? Why am I being asked to do that myself? That's why you guys are here. Long story short, now everybody's used to that. And the reason is because it went better, it went faster than if I had to wait for an agent, right? So that goes back to what I said earlier. If it makes things better, faster, more effective, more efficient, more economical, that might be a good decision to make. I think nowadays we're really, I mean, obviously AI, I don't want to throw that out as a bingo word, but AI is just the generative AI, the intelligent predictive intelligence that exists, can anticipate things in a very quick way that we as humans just have a very hard time with. That being said, when you use virtual agent, you have to make sure that you design that correctly. Right? One of the things that you mentioned is at some point I need to be able to skip out of it and say, hey, I just need to talk to somebody, right? Because I have experiences with organizations where I keep in this infinite loop of I cannot get out of this, right? Typically, when you select financial, right, you have to pay something, then you get to talk to somebody. And I would just tell them, listen, I don't have a financial issue, but it's the only way I get to talk to somebody. I just have a problem that there's no number here that I can pick. But that being said, so self-service is very important, right? So nowadays, if your password reset is not automated, if your account unlock is not automated, I mean, I say that respectfully, but you should be able to do that nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So it's the simple things, the quick things that I don't need to invest in a lot of people. Let the people that I have, let them focus on the things that are complex, that are important, and that need human interaction. But I'd like to hear your Reddit answer.
Yeah, well, you put it perfectly, because you said it earlier. You were like, sometimes I'll sit on the phone for an hour, and if I need it, I will totally invest that time so that I can get it. And the rest of things, the things that should be simple, should be easy, we call them flipping bits. If it's just a checkbox somewhere, if it's just a reset password, that really is like, I hate this phrase, but that really is the low-hanging fruit. That is the obvious opportunity that we should be taking to improve experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes all it takes is going through the experience yourself. 471, you pointed it out. If I'm filling out a self-service ticket and I have to put in my own name, that's a problem. I'm already logged in. You know who I am. Don't make me fill in my manager name. You should show me all the devices that are assigned to me right next to my ticket so I can say, this one's the problem, and point to it and associate it for you. But I think that's where service management comes in, right? If you're doing service design, if you're on your way towards service transition, you need to be doing this. You need to be walking through in your customer's shoes, do the walkthrough tours, make sure your executives see, your project sponsors can see what that experience is like, and then observe your customers, the people that you serve with these services, observe them using them. For so long, we gave users Office, maybe an ERP tool, email, and that was about it. And for the longest time, you could go to someone's desk and watch them do something in Excel, and they would be doing a Sisyphean feat of some kind using VLOOKUP and some other Excel formula. And the times where we can just let that all live in a vacuum and ignore it are gone. You can no longer just let your customers wallow in that pain, in that anguish. You need to sit there and watch them do field visits. If you have custom applications that your app dev teams are building, make sure that they watch people use those applications, and have them rotate out which developers are going to do the field visits. It really comes down to being able to listen to people, understand them. I want to call it like organizational empathy. Like you don't necessarily need to understand their emotions. You don't need to understand the complexities of human nature, but you do need to meet them halfway. You need to meet them where they are and understand and say like, hey, there's a better way to do this. And it's not an Excel, whatever it is.
No, I agree, right? And I think part of that is that an organization needs to look at things, and not 100%, but at least 80%, that the user experience is similar across the board, right? And if you have multiple help desks or if you have multiple applications, it should all be kind of fairly similar, right? So I think that user experience that we have ignored for many, many years just becomes more and more important, right? Like I said in the beginning, if I go to my social media, I won't say it's perfect, but they nailed that down pretty well, right? It doesn't matter which one I go to. In a very easy to understand, easy to use way, I'll use the application, how complex the background is of that. So everything needs to be relatively easy, relatively simple, same user experience across the board, and that will minimize things. So service desk organizations, but service desks need to focus on that as well. Unify the approach, unify the systems that we use, unify the way we interact with humans. So it's a consistent expectation, right? It doesn't matter if I call today or call tomorrow. I know what to expect. And I think that is key.
Yeah, agreed. And part of that is just learning from our mistakes. You put in a change, causes a problem, you have to learn from it. Okay, maybe this system should be redundant. Maybe this part of our network needs an overhaul. It's all the details that are happening within service management that then contribute to the modern help desk experience, because it's beyond just tickets. It's beyond just break fix and request fulfill. It really is like everything that IT does should hopefully improve the service experience overall, like less tickets, less outages. And beyond that, you don't know always when service management is having that impact. If people stop calling about something, how do you know that they stopped calling? Maybe you were tracking every single category and you see the calls completely dip off, but that feels, again, like luxury, like something that we don't necessarily have the time to do. But if you're going to celebrate your failures and learn from your failures, you need to take the time to celebrate and learn from your successes as well.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I'm not saying that you're fully wrong with what you just said, right, about looking at these things and not having the time. I think it's also having the again, innovative mind, maybe a little bit. When it talked about your availability and capacity management of the infrastructure, the challenge of that is that is an investment that people need to make in the organization, right, in the infrastructure. That typically is completely separated from your operational expenditure, right? So the comparison, for example, that we should be making is, if I invest more in my infrastructure, what is the effect of that on my operational expense, and how does that balance out? Right? And we never do that. We just look in the silo of, okay, I don't have money to invest here, but we then don't look on the operational side on how much money do we need to invest there to keep that balance, or to keep fixing things that just keep on breaking. So we need to have people that with big data, And again, predictive artificial intelligence can help us do the analysis of the cause and effect. Right? So what if I would scenarios, right? What if I would spend money there? What if I would do that? And again, it's a little bit industry dependent. The industry that I work in a lot, yeah, they really, that the investment in the help desk is not as much, right? Because that's not their critical thinking, right? That is not where they feel that the organization needs to spend their money. But doesn't mean that people get dissatisfied and demotivated, but we ignore that sometimes. So anyway, let's go back to the help desk. I digress. Well,
it's a different one.
I saw participant 703, right? Best way to minimize human error is to have no humans around, right? Then we don't have. Well, that's a different conversation. We can spend an hour on that one
too. Can an organization exist without people? That's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to go back to your expectations comment real quick, because I did have a thought on that, and that is I called my wife and I had our identities stolen, and this was like 3 years ago, and so we have this huge problem with the IRS with taxes, and so last year I spent probably a total of about 12 hours on the phone with them, mostly waiting in the queue just for them to pick up. Well, this year we kind of had the same problems as we always do since our identities were stolen. And this time people were picking up within 2 or 3 minutes. And that expectation is something that my expectation was really low still. I thought I was going to wait on hold for an hour like I was doing the year before. And suddenly it was 2 to 3 minutes. Number one, I was delighted to not have to wait so long. That was amazing. And number two, I had no idea that it had improved that much. So there is this element of celebrating your successes and the part of service transition and change that needs to be communicated to your end users and to your customers, because they may not know. Like what you said, investing in technology, we're not investing in the service desk. We're investing in this technology. And here's why.
Yeah.
And that really, like that start with why, that Simon Sinek phrase that echoes in everyone's brain over and over, start with why, that really is like key to setting those expectations to help people understand that you have modernized and why you haven't in some cases, or why things aren't the way that you thought they were. And I really loved your perspective. You are right. So often we just look at the budget. Do we have the money? Do we not have the money? It's not very innovative to work within a budget, but sometimes we're forced to.
Yeah. And just before we get to the top of the hour, right? So participant 155, yes, removing the silos. That's not only in this conversation, but man, we'd love to break the silos, right? We'd love to break the walls. Every class that I start is always with a smiley face, right? And I say, it doesn't matter which organization if you're in development, if you're in support, if you're in operations, right? This is everybody's goal, right? Is a smiling customer, a smiling user. Mm-hmm. We just have different ways to get there, right? Different things, responsibilities, but that should be our goal. And that needs to break down the barriers. We have to collaborate. Service desk agents are the most challenging people to service. I do have to agree with that, right? I work, obviously, Matt, you and I work in the service industry. Man, do I pay attention to all that stuff, right? And 9 out of 10 times I'll let that slide if it doesn't really match up with me, but sometimes I just can't, right? Especially when I see that there is no thought process at all about, again, I never blame individuals, by the way. When an individual is not performing, 99 out of 100 times it's because they were not trained, they were not educated, they're not being told that this is an important element of the job that they do. So if I see that consistently happening, they will hear from me, right? It's then don't be in the service business if you don't want to.
It's so true. Hospitality is tough. My spouse always says, Matt, you're really good on those calls. You're super patient. You're always joking. You try to make people feel good. It's tough to do, but it's an important aspect of being a good customer. And for 155, removing the silos, man, I think one of the best things you can do is involve people, even if it's unrelated. hey, we're thinking about switching I'll use the same terrible example, switching our laptops. We're choosing to switch our laptops. Send out an email. Are you interested? What's getting you interested? Partner with HR because they will understand what people need. Partner with finance. Maybe they'll free up some of the budget. But the idea is that your project teams should involve different aspects of your company, involve the differing perspectives. And you can do it through research. You can do it through literally inviting them onto your project teams. I think that's one of the best ways to remove silos is to get people involved, because when they're involved and working on the project with you, they'll see the research, they'll do the analysis with you, they'll start the prototyping with you, and that will help them understand how you got there, why you made those decisions. Will start to break down those silos, because people will feel, because then when you launch the laptop, it was their choice. They're not going to complain about this X200 or whatever, because they helped you pick it. So they can't complain. And it removes this they did it, us versus them. It removes that silo feeling from people.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think another thing to what I saw helpful in the past is if you put people who provide the service, right, and the service desk, let them sometimes switch sides and go on the other side, right? Let them make the call. Let them use the capabilities and the functionalities. Last thing before we end, I had one experience where we would run batch jobs for a customer, and that would produce some data that would be printed on stickers. It was for trucks to deliver and restock their stores. But sometimes that batch run would not finish. There would be some problems, and we would leave that till the next day. So one time, customer gave us a tour of their facility and said, "Oh, by the way, here's that batch printer that you guys run on Sundays. If this one doesn't print the stickers, at 4 o'clock on Monday morning, there's like 30 trucks sitting here in front of the warehouse that cannot be loaded, and we have to wait then until you guys finally print your stickers, maybe 4, 5, 6 hours later." All of a sudden, everybody on our side was like, "What the heck?" Right? So we have 30 trucks sitting here because we wanted to go home on a Sunday evening. It is that experience, right? Put yourself sometimes in the experience of the other side and in their shoes, right? And when you get that empathy, that makes a huge impact on how you can modernize your service desk and do things a lot better.
Here's a good question from participant 703. Best way to convince leaders to take a closer look at continual service improvement. How can we convince leaders to invest? Because sometimes they just want a perfect solution without weighing appropriately, like their options.
Yeah, that's a question. Good question for you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I always bring it back to money. Money, goals, objectives, because you have to make it personal.
Yeah.
People won't change their behaviors or beliefs until they have a reason to do so. So you have to show them either, hey, we're losing money, we're going to gain more money, or someone's going to benefit in our organization from this improvement. And I think that's a tough one. That's a tough one to do sometimes, especially for leaders that are stubborn or unempathetic.
Yeah, and I don't know where who was the number 703 who they're from. They're talking about continuous improvement, and I don't want to be a language stickler, but I always talk about continual improvement, right? And the small nuance is that we're not trying to make things better the whole time 24/7, right? You need to take well, yeah, but again, that's where words sometimes matter. If you do an effort where you periodically sit down and look at your organization and look at what you're doing, and then come up with the 3 things or the 5 things that you're going to address in the next 3 months, 6 months, then it becomes digestible, right? And then also your leadership can wrap their head around that, right? They don't see it as a big thing and a big investment, and it never cuts to something. It goes back to something we talked about in the first session, right? It is, don't try to keep 20 plates up in the air. Start with 3, right? Make it digestible, make it, don't boil the ocean, but small pieces, right? And then show the leadership that doing this improvement has its benefits with the 2, 3, 4 things that you're doing, and then let it naturally expand, let it grow.
Great advice. Great advice, Adrian. Adrian, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you, Matt. As always, great job.
And thank you, audience. Yeah, for joining us. Today. Thank you for considering this relationship between service management and digital transformation. A big thank you to everyone for being here. And I think we've got another webinar coming up. There's a program called Service Management Unleashed, Driving Business Success in Today's World and Beyond. It's on Wednesday, September 6th. There's a registration page, I think, linked in the chat. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Obviously, we are huge nerds and love talking about this topic. So ping us on LinkedIn, ask more questions. We're here for you, and we hope to see you at the next one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye now.